Hello, boys and girls. I want to welcome you to another Trainers Talk. And today's guest, I'm going to kind of give you a little intro before we get into our conversation today. Today's guest graduated from UNC, Chapel Hill, his bachelor's degree there, and he went to Stanford University where he got in graduate school for credit and financial management. He's also went to Harvard Business School for the program for management development, and also did certification for external coaching at Columbia Business School. His early side of his career in the 80s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s was in banking as an executive with Wells Fargo, then Merrill Lynch, Bank of America as a high-level executive, working in San Francisco and also in Asia, in several other places, London, you can name a few. So he's been around the world, to say the least. Also, as we move forward, one of the things that our next guest here, Mr. Rob Morrow, he is also the managing partner of Inflection Point Consulting. And Rob and myself have known each other for over 10 years. And he's also been a coach to me when it's come to some of the business things when I started Calciga Fit. And I think our conversation today with what's gone on in 2020 will be a very useful one. And it will be one where it'll probably be the first Trainers Talk where a pen and a pencil and a piece of paper or your iPad is going to be needed. Because I think some notes and some life lessons and some business lessons will come out of this talk. Hopefully that can help you move forward in this rest of this year and years to come. So I want to thank our very special guest.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is I look forward to the conversation as I always do with you.
Yeah.
One of the things I was observing as I was thinking about what you had asked me to prepare for, or at least give some thought to, was as I was thinking about my consulting practice and how I go about doing it and what I think is important to my clients, I kept being struck by the similarities between my practice and your practice.
Yeah.
That the mediums may be different, but the concept of trying to help people advance an agenda that's important to them and being able to facilitate that, I think we share that.
Yeah.
So I was, one of the unintended consequences of thinking about this was how much our businesses are alike.
Yes, and it's totally true. I think at the end of the day, we're totally, in a way, we're coaches, we're advisors to our clients and to those closest to us. And you named your consulting company Inflection Point. What is an inflection point?
Well, an inflection point is defined as the point where a change takes place.
Yeah.
So change is the key word. So that's kind of the definition. There are lots of technical definitions. An inflection point is often referred to as a sharp bending of light.
Okay.
So it's a change of direction. It's where change takes place. So change is at the heart of it. When I think about it and apply it to my own practice, I like to think of it as those crossroads, those watershed moments that we all face, and how we handle those has a lot to do with what we become and what we achieve.
Totally.
So it's important points of change that, if done correctly, can make a big difference.
Yeah.
So it's about high impact opportunities that we have a chance to grasp.
Yeah.
So that is and really the name of the practice, Inflection Point, I think speaks exactly to what I'm trying to do with people.
Yeah, totally. And when you created this in 2012, and looking through your CV and your career a little bit, you've done a lot in banking. You've also worked at your high school alma mater.
Yes.
And doing chief development for that campus. But as you moved into this, where you're working with individual clients versus teams and leading teams in different, was there an inflection point, or was there a...
You can say it.
Yeah, was there an inflection point in you deciding to create Inflection Point Consulting?
Well, it's a great question.
Yeah.
And I would say, I'd answer it like this, that when I left my last sort of business part of my career, which is at Table Rock Capital, which is a infrastructure firm, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I decided I was going to take a good bit of time to think about that and figure it out. And I spent, let's say, I spent a year on that journey. And during the course of that journey, what I discovered was that when you were seeking advice, when you were really trying to get people to help you, you know, I need your advice, I need your help, I need your counsel.
Yeah.
It was very hard to come by.
Yeah.
And over the course of the year, I discovered, in round terms, there were really three sets of people. The first set were people that were very eager to help you.
Yeah.
Good, well-meaning, come over anytime and talk. But at the end of the day, they really couldn't help you because they weren't well-trained or they couldn't add any value to your problem.
Yeah.
So well-meaning, but they couldn't help.
Yeah.
Then there was a second group of people that could help you, well-qualified, but you didn't have access to them. You couldn't get to them, or if you got to them, they just really wouldn't help you.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then there was a third and very small set of people that could help you and would help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said to myself, I kind of had an epiphany, if you will. I said, you know, that's what I want to build my firm around. I want to build my firm around a concept that I can help people and I will help people.
Yeah.
And that's what my business is about.
And what would you say is kind of your approach when it comes to when you sit down, when you meet a client for the first time, what does that kind of look like?
Well, first of all, let's set the stage a little bit. Inflection Point Consulting is a highly basically, it's a highly customized consulting practice designed to help individuals identify and address issues that are of strategic importance to them.
Yeah.
So that sets the stage. And while each engagement or each client is different, I'd say there are probably three overriding elements that are important as you go through the work. The first is what I call a needs assessment.
Okay.
You know, or sometimes I refer to it as a statement of discontent. You know, what is it that you are seeking help in?
Yeah.
So we start there. Oddly enough, that can be very difficult to determine.
Yeah.
People often actually don't know exactly what the problem is or what they're trying to solve.
Yes, awareness is not always high on most people's
You
charts.
know, people can come in, they're very emotional, they're can be all over the place, and so really getting to the essence of what it is they want to address is not always self-evident. So we start with the needs assessment. From there, the next step, or one of the early steps, is taking an inventory. And when I say taking inventory, before we can decide what course of action we're going to take against the problem, you know, we have to know what's in your toolkit. What are you equipped to do? And I like to think of this in terms of your personal capital.
Yeah.
That each of us, as we grow through our life, develop certain things elements that become to mean us.
Yeah.
Okay, and I look at those as five different categories of personal capital. There's intellectual capital, which is how you think, how you learn, how you grow. There's career capital, which is what have you done in your life, what skills have you amassed, what experiences do you have. There's financial capital, which is, you know, what is your financial situation?
Yeah.
Kind of does make a difference as you start to explore options. So we need to understand that. Another one we look at is relationship capital. How do you define relationships in your life?
Yeah.
Who are your relationships? When you think of being a good friend to someone, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So how you relate to people is critical. And the fifth, and not necessarily the last, but the fifth capital that we look at is social capital, which is how do you view yourself as a member of the community? Are you on an island or are you a participant?
Yeah.
So when we take that whole body of work, we take a look at all of that capital, and that becomes your toolkit and basically becomes your DNA.
Yeah.
That's your thumbprint.
So we just kind of went through a lot right there, and I think let's almost kind of take it backwards and come back to the needs assessment, and we can bounce some like examples maybe off of each category, because I think it's important as you're watching this, if you can just listen along, but I think if you pull out a piece of paper and you start to do this for yourself, it doesn't even have to be connected to a job. You can be retired and you're kind of in this phase of figuring out what's the next thing you want to focus on in your life, or you just need to do a checkup, and I think this is a good thing. So maybe I'll use myself as the needs assessment. So if we're talking about the needs assessment, how does that start off? And I can use myself, and I'll just answer the questions that you might deliver towards me if I walk.
Well, let's say you were referred to me.
Yeah.
And by the way, 100% of my business is referral.
Yeah.
So someone would have suggested to you, probably another client, you would come to see me, and I would say, certainly, let's get together. And probably the first thing I would ask you was, what brings us together?
Yeah.
What brings you here? Most people don't do preventative consultant.
Yes.
I mean, they've got something on their mind.
Exactly.
Right? So, what's on your mind? What is it we're trying to achieve here? Tell me a bit about your situation. And through that process, we would try to, and if you don't mind me personalizing this a little,
totally.
When you and I first met, I would say what that would have sounded like after we filtered through it. You were saying, well, I'm taking a very serious look at becoming more independent in my health and wellness practice.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think carefully about what are the key issues I need to think about as I look at perhaps leaving one job and going to another job. There's a level of uncertainty there. There's a level of risk there.
Totally.
How do I actually get my mind and my brain around and measure those carefully?
Totally.
So that would have sort of constituted the need after we had talked a while.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and it could be, sometime a need represents itself as somebody's got a problem. Sometimes it's a big opportunity.
Yeah.
I live in San Francisco. My wife is a doctor. I've just gotten a big opportunity to move to New York for a big promotion within my consulting firm or my bank, whatever it might be. Okay, so why are you coming to talk to me? Sounds like life is good.
Yeah.
Well, my wife doesn't want me to take this job, and she doesn't want to relocate her practice in the kids' school to New York.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have something to unpack.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those would be a couple of examples of needs. But it's, I guess the one thing I'd say about needs is I can't overestimate the importance of getting that as clear as possible.
Yeah.
And actually I insist with clients that we end up with a written needs assessment.
Yeah. Yes, and so I would suggest doing the same thing and writing those down and really clearly having them. You can then build off your inventory. You can build off those capital, because I like how you break that down, the different capital things.
Well, the other thing about a needs assessment is frequently, when you work with consultants of any kind or work period, it may, many of the people in the audience may experience this when you're working with a group, you're on a board, whatever. One of the common pitfalls you have is what I call strategy drift. In other words, all of a sudden you're at the end of a meeting and nobody knows where you are or how you got there.
Yeah.
And you can't remember even what you've started. Why are we, how did we start the meeting?
Yeah.
So I use the needs assessment as sort of the North Star
Gotcha.
of the work.
Yeah.
So that we can constantly go back and test our work saying, how does it correlate to what we set out to change?
Totally.
That's the need. That's the North Star.
Yeah. And that's so important because you will get lost because a lot of things will come at you, especially in today's world where things change really quickly. And if you still don't remember what the reason why you're doing what you're doing, you will drift pretty far out.
Well, it's the world's currents take you in different places. So it's not whether you're going to be pushed and pulled along this path, because you will be.
Yes.
The question is, do you have a rudder or a North Star that brings you back?
Yeah.
And without it, I think you can really find yourself not doing the work you want to do and not getting the results you want to get.
Yeah, yeah. Let's. I think some of the financial capital makes total sense,
right,
in the sense of that's pretty straightforward, and the social capital and the relationship capital. I would say speak on those a little bit more, because when you go through this assessment, if you look at some of your clients, when you go through this assessment, is there any light bulbs that you see kind of start to show itself when you're working with a client and they start going through this assessment part?
Well, it is, because what the normal pattern is, I go through the exercise with them or introduce it, and you can sort of see that, what's this about? Look.
Yes.
How do these things fit together? And these don't apply to me. Okay, so there's a little bit of a hedge that always goes on. Usually by the time we finish, there's some aha moments.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. Let me give you an example, if I could. Okay. And this goes back to what I was talking about with this one client I had who was an investment professional, and his wife was in fact a doctor.
Yeah.
And they did in fact have 3 children in San Francisco, all in private school.
Yeah.
And we were going through this drill, and he had in fact been offered a big new job in New York. And we were going through all of this, and he had filled in the part about the relationships, yeah, and how important his relationships were to his parents. His parents actually lived in Florida, and they were moving to California to be near the family.
Yeah.
And so when we started dissecting the list, I asked him. I said, "Look, I got a question that's come up here." I said, your wife is a doctor with a job in San Francisco. Your kids are in private school in San Francisco. Your parents are relocating. All of those are important relationships. Parents, wife, children, yes, right? The big 3.
Yeah.
Okay? So all of those people, the epicenter of all of those lives is or will soon be in San Francisco. So is it realistic for us to spend a lot of time thinking about you taking a job in New York?
Yeah.
And he said, I understand. I understand why you asked the question. I understand the importance of the relationship thought. And so if you think about what some of the bumper guards on your life are,
yeah,
what you can do, where you can do, how you can do it, I could develop a whole scenario that was just relationship based.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You would be an example, my good friend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, if you said, look, I got an opportunity to open up. The pandemic has given me an opportunity. There are 3 new fantastic state-of-the-art gym facilities in Las Vegas. I'm going. I'm not sure you are.
Yeah.
And for good reasons. And it wouldn't be because of the business opportunity.
No.
It would be because of the relationships.
Exactly.
So I think I think relationships, why they're important to us, how we develop them, is just really important, critical stuff.
The thing that is interesting is that the different level of clients that you've worked with. So tell me a little bit more about your clients. I mean, we've talked about this kind of briefly before, but kind of give me an idea, a demographic of what type of clients you're working with.
Great question. Interesting question. And I think before I answer that,
Yeah.
I'd confess something here. Many of us enter situations like consulting or being mentors with the idea that you're going to impart all this information and you're going to teach everybody and you're going to save them.
Yeah.
Well, I would say the most interesting byproduct of my 7 years doing this is how much I've learned from my clients.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm the net winner here.
Yeah.
My clients, I'm sure they might have a range of views about it, but I feel lucky.
I ditto.
To have my clients. But let me just give you a thumbnail sketch, if that would work.
Totally.
I think I mentioned before that all of my clients virtually are either individuals or very small groups.
Yeah.
Okay, mostly individuals. 100% of the business is referral.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 7 years now. I've had over probably 65 clients.
Yeah.
But within the context of that, we've probably done 125 to 150 engagements.
Yeah.
In other words, often a client will come to me with whatever the issue is.
Yeah.
And an engagement, I only work on an engagement basis, and an original engagement usually is anywhere from 8 to 12 sessions.
Yeah.
Okay, and a session is just a period with me, and that constitutes an engagement.
Yeah.
In probably half of my clients, I do multiple engagements.
Yeah.
In some cases, I'm on my 5th and 6th engagement with a client.
Yeah.
Because they keep re-upping and keep wanting me to work with them as they're progressing and changing jobs or moving or whatever. So about 150 engagements. My clients vary a great deal by age. Probably the youngest is 22, the oldest is 72.
Yeah.
They vary by location, they vary by gender, they vary by profession, and they vary by need.
Yeah.
About 75% of my clients actually live outside of California.
Yeah.
A good number of those live outside the United States.
Yeah.
The range of professions has been terrific, I think. I've got, from shipping to manufacturing to law to banking to photography to landscaping to performing arts to people in civil service, people in the State Department, and people in health and wellness.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a very eclectic group. So I've had a chance to learn more. And one of the things that I tell my clients, and this is true,
Yeah.
because some consultants consult on very explicit issues.
Yes.
Like in your business, someone might be a consultant on exactly how to lay out gym equipment in an X number of square feet.
Exactly.
If I want to know where the rowing machine goes here, that's that.
Yeah.
That's not what I do.
Yeah.
What I tell my clients is that, I'm here to understand your needs and develop a strategy for you.
Yeah.
And while I do, depending on the nature of their business, sometimes I know a good bit about it, sometimes I know very little about it. But what I tell them is my working assumption is that they have forgotten more about their business than I'm ever going to know.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. I have really a very good and interesting client who is an aeronautics engineer at NASA. Mm. Well, that's all I know about NASA. You've heard it.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to help him run his numbers better.
Exactly.
I'm trying to help him figure out why he's not happy at NASA and how he might repot himself somewhere else. And are his skills identifiable and transferable onto another platform?
Yeah.
I don't need to know anything about NASA.
Yes. Yeah. That's interesting. And so, if you were going to write a book and put some of the recurring themes that are pop up with your clients, what are some of those things that you see consistently across all those different demographics?
So if I took a look at, if I just did a random walk through those 150 relationships, what would there be any patterns?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, noting that they're all different and unique, there are in fact some patterns. And I would say one of the most important patterns is that as I look at people that have, let's just say, been more and less successful in the work.
Yeah.
One of the things that's consistently important is those people that have actually the capacity to change. And the real X factor, and this is what really bugs people. The real X factor is people's level of motivation and their willingness to do the hard work that it takes to change.
Yeah.
And it's an inside job. Okay, my job is to open the door. They have to walk through it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty consistent, I'd say. And I don't think there's a single engagement that hasn't been critical.
Yes.
So your willingness and motivation to work hard to bring about the change you want.
And so you're saying within the themes, so you're saying the ability to change, which is something we'll come back to later, because I think is very noteworthy when it comes to the pandemic, and then the motivation to change. Is there any other themes that you notice?
I think those are about. Well, I tell you what. There's another theme.
Yeah.
The human condition is pretty pressed.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look across these 60 to 65 people that I've dealt with, had the pleasure of dealing with, and across all sectors, and one of them's a PhD from Stanford. I mean, it just goes all over the place.
Yeah.
But the one common thing is a lot of people really need help. That's the most common denominator.
Yeah.
And it supersedes money, it supersedes geography, it supersedes age, is people need help.
Yeah.
People are struggling, and it might be about something you'd have no idea about, and I think that's why this needs assessment that I talked about is so important.
Yeah.
But people's ability to identify their need and ability to identify their need, the ability to ask for help, and then really the last mile of that is the ability to trust you enough with that assignment.
Yeah.
I mean, when I always do an intake. I mean, when somebody comes to me, I spend about an hour going through all of this, and I tell them in advance, this is a two-way interview.
Yeah.
You've got to trust me a lot, because my work with people tends to be intense.
Yeah.
And it tends to be hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I tell people that right up front. And oftentimes someone will say, well, I really like what I've heard today, and when do we get started? And I always say, well, no, we're not ready yet. I want you to go away, take a couple of days. I want you to think about what I've said today, think about the terms of the engagement. And if after 2 or 3 days of thinking about it, you're interested, call me back.
Yeah. I've done that in my own practice too.
Because it's what I don't want to do for my sake, and actually more importantly for my client's sake, is for have someone not to really thought about the importance of the work, the scope of the work, and that's the reason, frankly, I only work on an engagement basis.
Yeah.
So I want someone to be able to commit to 8 to 12 sessions up front.
Yeah.
And if they can't, then I respect that, but I don't want to get 2 sessions into the work and then they disappear.
Yeah, totally.
It's not a good approach.
Can you share any examples of your clients' experiences that you've?
I can. I've got a number, but one assignment comes to mind. Again, it was a referral. A young man, young to me, about 40 years old. He's an attorney. He was when he came to me, he was very, very unhappy in his practice, or just very unhappy about his job situation. And as I was listening to him describe the problem, I used a phrase which I use maybe too often with my clients. I said, look, we need to determine whether you're in the right church but just sitting in the wrong pew, or are you in the wrong church?
Yeah. Meaning,
are you just in the wrong business?
Yeah.
And so let me break that down for you. So what it meant in his case, the church was legal. He's a lawyer. He loved the law and he loved what he practiced. He was in the wrong pew, meaning he was working for the wrong firm. The culture, the size, the values of the firm were wrong for him. And so once we got to that, that's a big deal, because I want the client to be able to touch the bottom of the pool. He says, I'm actually okay here. I'm just in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a big breakthrough to get that.
Totally.
Because he was thinking about maybe I shouldn't be a lawyer, which turned out not to be the case. So the assignment with him turned out to have 2 parts to it. Well, first, after determining that he was just in the wrong firm, so we developed a strategy, an exit strategy. How could he actually get out of it gracefully and with a good reputation? And then secondly, how could he repot himself in a place that would be better for him?
Yeah.
And so it took us about 6 months to extricate him from the firm. He started his own firm, and he's now in his 4th year turning clients away.
Yeah, wow. That's awesome.
So I have another one if you want it. Or
let's get one more, and then we'll kind of dive in to the pandemic kind of things that people are going through.
This is a different one. It's a young lady who came to me on a referral from someone in Charlottesville, Virginia. She had just graduated, just received her PhD from Stanford in environment and resources, and she was struggling very badly because she didn't know whether she was going to pursue an academic career with a PhD or she wanted to go into the private sector. And she just literally kept bouncing off of that. So we had to break down both of those options and alternatives, and we did. And we spent, actually, probably it took us 2 years to work through those options.
Yeah.
She ultimately decided she wanted to be in the private sector, and I'm really very proud of her. She's now in her 6-month working at Google.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So just great outcome, and but those are just two examples of many.
So one of the things that 2020 has been one of these years that has been, I would say, epic is a low bar. How has the COVID-19 affected your clients?
Well, I don't think it would surprise you to say that virtually all of my clients have been affected, professionally, financially, and personally. I don't know a single person that's escaped it. It's affected some more than others, in more draconian ways than others, but nobody has escaped, and I think that would be consistent with your experience.
Totally.
So it's omnipresent, and it's real.
Yeah. And what are some of the things that you're working with to help your clients kind of navigate the pandemic?
Well, the first thing I try to, well, the two things I try to do early on. One, I say, the importance of asking for help.
Yeah.
This is a time to ask for help, and this goes back to our original comments. Where do you get help?
Exactly.
Okay, so it's full circle here. Help's not easy to find.
Exactly.
Good help.
Exactly.
Good help. So you're looking for good help. But the other thing I try to share with people is that is to point out that our lives have and are, in fact, being profoundly affected.
Yes.
And that the changes that we're experiencing, I believe, are going to be significant and long-lasting.
Yeah.
I just think it's important that, if people are saying, what's the matter with me and how come this is disturbing me so much, I think there's real grounds for being concerned,
Totally.
and we are in deep water. So I try to
Be realistic with
I
that.
try to be realistic about that, and in the spirit of realistic.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with, or our audience is familiar with something called the Stockdale paradox.
No.
Okay.
Teach me.
Maybe this is one of the
Yeah.
papers. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Admiral James Stockdale was a Vietnam POW from 1965 to 1973.
Mm-hmm.
And he predictably endured sort of unspeakable, torture and duress. But he survived and he returned. And since his return, he has committed his life to writing and teaching and lecturing about the art, broadly defined, the art of survival.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe something we could use right now.
Exactly.
And interestingly enough, one of the questions that he gets in one form or another is people try to sort of tee up, answer their own question is, well, obviously one of the cornerstones of survival in a draconian environment, which we qualify for, is optimism.
Yeah.
We need optimism.
Exactly.
And Admiral Stockdale says, not so fast. He says, my experience in the prisoner of war camp was the people that were overly optimistic were the most disappointed. Disappointment led to heartbreak, led to death. So the way he would phrase this is that the people that did the best or fared the best in these horrible situations were the people that were able to face the brutal reality and how dark things actually were. That they led with being realistic and they followed with optimism.
Gotcha.
And an example would be, one of his cellmates would say, I just know we're going to be home for Christmas. Well, they weren't for 7 years.
Yeah.
So the admiral would say, you have to have long-term confidence in yourself. You have to have a prevailing view of faith, and it's going to ultimately be okay.
Yeah.
But in the interim, you have to be able to face reality and deal with things on a tactical basis. And I think that he would say that you need a heavy dose of realism along with a bit of optimism.
Yeah.
And I think that's an appropriate message for where we are today.
Totally.
Yeah,
it's that's true. I mean, you have to deal within reality and know that it's going to get worse before it gets better. And within that, you've mentioned during this time getting back to the basics. What does that look like?
Well, you and I have shared this before, and Donavan has been nice enough to include me in some group work we've done together with his team, and these are the beauty of this, and what's fun about this is it's just so many of the themes we talk about are just I like to think they're timeless. Maybe that's just self-serving.
Yeah.
Because I want to extend my work. but I do think a lot of these things do not go out of fashion.
Yes.
And so when I look at an environment we're in now, which I think qualifies for chaotic, difficult, and complex and uncertain, I think that is a time to kind of go back to basics.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that? I think there are 3 or 4 things that would be on that list. I would encourage people to focus carefully on things that are important to them, things that matter, and things that they have some degree of control over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In other words, right now, for example, you may be long-term concerned about global warming, but there are probably more immediate issues you've got to tackle than that.
Yeah.
So that would probably say it's important to me, but I don't control it much.
Yeah.
So I think we need to keep our list of activity relatively short. Things that are important and things we can control. Second thing I think I would encourage people to do is go back and revisit their priorities, because this is not business as usual. You might have had a priority list a year ago, which I doubt would be the same today.
Exactly.
So go back and look at your list. Professionally, financially, and personally.
Yeah.
Hit the reset button. It's probably different.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to look at it. The next thing I think we all need to do is create boundaries.
Yes.
Right? What's a boundary? A boundary says this is okay, this isn't okay. I mean, the most stark example we have now is we need to be 6 feet away.
Yes.
Okay, that's a boundary.
Yep.
But there may be other boundaries in your life that says, look, let's say you had made a commitment to a nonprofit organization, and you said you were going to give them $25 a month.
Yep.
You may no longer be in a position to do that.
Yep.
So creating a boundary would be, I can't do that anymore. As soon as I can, I will.
Yep.
So boundaries are just, like I used to say to my clients, I'm available 24/7.
Yeah.
And I now say, not on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's a boundary.
Yeah.
The other thing is, which is really important and difficult to do, is manage expectations.
Yes.
Right? To
Yeah.
tell people what you can do, what you can't, what they can expect of you, because disappointment really is only the difference between reality and expectations. So, for example, if I come to you and say somebody has referred me to you as a personal trainer,
Yeah.
and we say this is great, okay? And I say, I've got my gym bag in the back of the car. When can we get started?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you're saying to yourself, I've got a 1-month backlog of clients. I can't start until September 1.
Yeah.
Well, it's important for me to know that.
Yeah.
That's managing my expectation,
Totally.
right?
Yep.
You're not telling me no.
Yeah.
You're just saying, I'd love to take you on as a client. I can't do it till September 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm not disappointed,
Yeah.
right? You've managed my expectation.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think all of those things are key in continuously doing those as things change, because as things have been changing on us. The doors, you can do stuff inside. You can't do stuff inside anymore. You can do it only outside. So
Those are perfect examples of expectations,
yeah.
right? Don't come to the gym expecting to use all the machines, because the gym is closed.
Yeah.
We're doing it on the roof.
Yeah.
And you have to hear the new rules. Those are expectations. Those are boundaries.
Exactly.
And people can live with it as long as you're clear,
Exactly.
right? If you
Exactly.
gave mixed messages, this is what we're told to do, but you don't really have to.
Yeah.
That doesn't help,
Exactly.
right? That confuses people.
Totally. Is there anything you want to reflect on, for people to kind of take forward before we get off? And also outside of that, do you have any questions for me?
Well, I think I would leave one leave people with one thought. And that's this, that one of the things I encourage all my clients to do is to simply stay the course. Showing up and suiting up. There's no, as I like to say, there's no app for that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no app for that. And perseverance is a greatly underrated element.
Totally.
And so I would like to just leave you with one of my favorite quotes from Oliver Wendell Holmes.
Love it.
Who said the following. He said, "It is not so much where we stand, but what direction we are moving. Sometime we must sail with the wind, and sometime we must sail against it. But sail we must, and not drift or lie at anchor."
All right, well, I got my cell open. I want to thank you for sitting down with me.
My pleasure. We could do this forever. I think it's fun, and thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity to share my experiences, and I hope it's been some benefit to the group. It's been a great success from my standpoint. I've enjoyed it, as I always do with you, and it's fun to talk about these things, and I do think they're timeless.
Yeah, that is totally true, and I think being able to reset and use this and pause at different points, I think it's important to draw out the things that might help you out, and even if you only get one nugget out of there, I think it's totally worth it.
Yep, and I'm here if people want me, and it's fun. But I really want to thank you, and you've done a great job. I think the idea of these talks is great. And I think it's just a perfect example of the times.
Yeah.
Right. Where everybody's having to be creative, resourceful, and share.
Exactly.
And I think this touches all those bases.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.